My goal for you is that after this video, you will say, no matter what this is, I need to do it. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. My name is Elizabeth, and for today's video, I asked 20,000 people the question, did you do the consecration to Mary by St. Louis de Montfort, and how did it influence you? So the goal of this video is not that you will understand what total consecration to Mary is. I will talk about that in the next two videos and how to do it. But what happens to people when they do this consecration? And my goal for you is that after this video, you will say, no matter what this is, I need to do it. And I will structure the video in three parts. First, I will tell you what St. Louis himself says that is supposed to happen after the consecration. Second, I will tell you how I asked so many people. And thirdly, I will summarize the results and tell you what people told me that happened in their lives. Now, St. Louis de Montfort says in his book, True Devotion to Mary, which I will summarize next week, that there are 7 effects that this devotion, that this consecration can or will have on the soul that does this consecration. And he starts that chapter off by saying, my dear brother, be sure that if you're faithful to the interior and exterior practices of this devotion, which I'll point out, the following effects will take place in your soul. So the first thing that he mentions is that the person that does this devotion will gain knowledge of herself and will understand her own corruption and sinfulness. And this will happen because Mary will share her humility with that person, and the person will get a part of Mary's humility. The second one that will happen is that Mary will give you a portion of her faith. The third one is that Mary will take all scruples from your heart and will remove any fear from your soul. The fourth one is that Mary will equip the soul with great confidence in herself and the Son. The fifth effect is that Mary will communicate herself to the soul so that the soul can glorify God. The sixth thing that is supposed to happen is that if Mary, who is the tree of life, is well cultivated in her soul by fidelity to the practice of this devotion, she will bear her fruit in her own time, and her fruit is none other than Jesus Christ. So that's a bit abstract and difficult to understand, but basically Mary will take her time to produce Jesus Christ in your soul. And the seventh effect is that by this practice, faithfully observed, you will give Jesus more glory in a month than by any other practice, however difficult, in many years. How did I ask so many people? First, I asked 2 YouTuber friends, Monet Souza from A Message of Hope and Amber Rose, also known as the Religious Hippie, and they asked their their Instagram community, so that's where part of the responses comes from. I, of course, also asked people that I know in person, and lastly, I used Twitter, and as basically no one knows that I have a Twitter account, I added as many Catholic YouTubers or celebrities that I could fit into one tweet and asked them to retweet and share this. And that actually worked. I got a ton of responses and also private messages. And of course, some people were a bit disappointing by answering just yes to the question, whether the consecration has influenced them. But even Dr. Taylor Marshall answered my tweet, so that was an honor for me because I didn't even expect that he would see the tweet. And as you've noticed by now, not everyone whom I asked did the consecration, and not everyone from those people who did the consecration answered. Just because I asked someone, they didn't answer. So the results that I will share with you in the next part of the video are not meant to be scientific. They're just meant to motivate you to do the consecration. As St. Louis says, the first effect that this devotion will have on the soul is that the soul will recognize its sinfulness. And I actually found some people that experienced that. So I will read their responses to you. There's been nothing more profound in my life. Nothing has brought me closer to God than Our Lady. Then the same person talks about the 33 days while she was preparing for that consecration. Days became brighter, my confidence in her and love for Christ was the best thing I had felt in all of my life, and it was growing. The last week of my consecration, my prominent vice was shown to me. So that's the whole self-knowledge thing. And another person, it influenced me to love Mary and having self-knowledge. And the third response to that topic, the scales fell from my eyes and I understood my corruption and sinfulness. Up to that point, I thought of Mary as the beautiful woman that distributed graces with flower power. I was wrong. She fights for her children like a whole army. Then there is a category that St. Louis doesn't mention in his book, but I actually found some people that experienced that. For example, Jackie and Bobby Angel in their video about that total consecration said that they did the consecration the same year, and they believe that Mary has brought them together through that consecration. I will link the video in the description. I also found a comment where a woman says that she got pregnant the day of her consecration. I mean, I understand that that's not a miracle technically, but still a beautiful thing to happen. And the third testimony here is a woman that did the consecration hoping that it will save her marriage, and it didn't work out. So she got divorced from her husband. And later on, she realized that that was actually the right thing to happen, because she wasn't able to make that relationship work anyway. So either she would have lost her faith or her husband, and in that case, she lost her husband and kept her faith. Now, the most common of this consecration seems to be, at least among the people that responded to my question, that Mary made them have a mini conversion, and that if they were, for example, lukewarm Catholics before, that changed after the consecration. And I think that's probably the most beautiful response that I got from anyone. Someone said, "Absolutely changed the trajectory of my life. It was as if she was just waiting for me to do it before drowning me in grace." I mean, that's exactly what I have experienced too. That's how it felt. I just was drowned in grace during the preparation, especially during the preparation of that consecration. Someone else said, draws one nearer to God through our Blessed Mother, mini conversion. Took me out of a sinful cycle to the point that I was going to daily mass and exploring vocation avenues. I'd read lots of spiritual works before, but true devotion and the consecration resonated with me intellectually as well as spiritually, and everything seemed to click. Changed my life. Then another person said that he was basically a lukewarm Catholic before he did the consecration. He went to confession once a year when Catholics are obliged to before Easter. And when he did the consecration, he struggled a little bit because the texts were difficult to understand for lay people. And after that consecration was the turning point in his life. He understood that he understood how he is supposed to worship God and to serve God through Mary. Someone else said, structured me with discipline and opened the door to meet interior peace through sacrifice. The best habitual sin of any level is crushed. Now I have a category that St. Louis mentions as well. The whole thing where we learn to trust God and Mary, and also we learn to love Mary because we get to know Mary. And here I also got a bunch of responses that I will read to you. The first 3 readings completely transformed my relationship with Mary. So that's probably referring to the 33 days preparation that I will talk about in a future video. Yes, I did it. I learned to have more confidence in the love of Mary and Jesus, because they will take care of me always, knowing exactly what I need and when I need it. She grabbed my hand and picked me up and showed me the way to Jesus. I always will love her. All I can say is that it made me appreciate my baptism and the necessity of mortification. Just to love Our Lady and our Lord more. The more I do it, the more the words and detail mean more or stand out to me, or the litany is better, or I learn the Ave Maria Stella while reciting it daily, etc. Always something you read that stands out more each year. And the last category that I found were intellectual gifts or gifts of faith, which is something that St. Louis mentions as well, that Mary will give us a share of her faith. And here someone wrote, I believe that the total consecration has made my faith stronger. I'm able to understand things that I didn't understand before. And someone else wrote, I am closer to Christ. I have less of a desire / craving for the things of this world. Totally freeing! Exclamation mark. I can clearly discern situations and people's interior motives towards me, whether they're good or evil. I hope that convinced you to make the total consecration if you haven't yet. And if you have, and have some experiences that you'd like to share, please do so in the comments. I would love to read them. And also please share this with your Catholic friends. I'm sure that the total consecration, if they learn about it, can be the turning point in their lives. That's been it for today. See you next week. God bless, and bye!